afternoon floss tube. This is Gem Stitch here for my Stitch Mania. I put that in brackets on the basis that obviously, as I said, I've had a lot going on, and so this was my contribution to Stitch Mania. It's not going to be as rigid as it was before, like last year. I did have a lot of success last year. I wanted to make lots of ornaments to go alongside creating more of an ornament pile for the seasons and special occasion, Christmas, Halloween. But I didn't have any, so I decided to have an ornament focus piece once a month and trying to complete that. And if you did that once a month for 12 months, obviously you'd end up with 12 ornaments. So I did 12 starts last year in Mania and completed 11 ornaments. So I had relatively good success with that, and I would definitely do that again, but because of the way it fell this Mania, unfortunately I wasn't able to stick to that brief. So I'll start that again for next time in next Mania, but I'll show you my sort of token gesture and what I got up to this year. So the first pattern is a collection that I've had for a while. It's the Country Cottage Needleworks Gingerbread Village, and I have stitched some of those and completed some of those, but not all of them. As you can see, I'm actually only on Gingerbread House 3. So this is what the pattern will look like. This was, I believe this was actually finished by the wonderful Vonna Pfeiffer, who is also found on FlossTube as the Twisted Stitcher. She has wonderful tutorials. It's also nice to see her updates and the sort of things that she chooses to work on in her home. She also has a finishing service, so it's definitely worth checking Vonna Pfeiffer out, and you can find her under the Twisted Stitcher. So this was actually finished by Vonna, and I really like the colour combination that she's chosen here, and I'm stitching mine individually. Whether I will make them into flat folds similar, I'm not sure at the moment. I've had a couple of ideas, but really I wanted to complete the whole series first before I then moved on to decide what I was going to do next. So this is what I stitched on. I believe this was the equivalent of 2 days in May. Not 2 full days, but two times of picking it up, basically. So this is on a 32 count linen. I believe this is platinum linen. I think it's called for lamb's wool. Sorry, I didn't check that. Yeah, it's called for lamb's wool linen by Woodchelt, but I actually got this as a monthly subscription type thing from the Patchwork Rabbit, and she decided to put it on platinum by platinum 32 count Belfast by Zwaigart, which is absolutely fine because it's a company and a count that I really enjoy working on. So this is where I've got to so far. I will say that 2 of the colours that it does call for, which is I believe pecan and hazelnut, are hand dyed. They're by Weeks Dye Works. They are very close in colour. I know this has been mentioned by a few people before, and it's not always easy to decipher the difference when they're up close together. So what I've actually done, although this stitching is here and is charted, I've been changing out for a darker colour so that you get more of a contrast. So it's not exactly the same as the picture here, but you can't really tell. You can a little bit in this picture here, but I wanted more of a definition, so I'm just going to outline it and then fill it in just to make this bit stand out and a bit more proud. I have all the buttons, and I have, like I said, because I collected it was sent through monthly as a subscription. I have all the threads that I need to complete the series. I just literally haven't got round to getting them all done, but I'll finally decide on my finishing ideas once I've completed the whole series, because then I'll know I can finish them all the same. So that's Country Cottage Needleworks Gingerbread House 3, and that was one of my Stitch Mania starts. The next one was one of 3 that I'd actually picked up in, this would be the first time I worked on a Mill Hill kit. Sorry about the glare, I'm trying to get the right angle. It's because it's a little bit shiny. That's it. This is part of the Magi Trilogy, so obviously it's the 3 wise men. And I really liked the idea of the 3 wise men as well, to have as an ornament. Again, I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to finish them, but I did know that I didn't want to finish them on the perforated paper, so I did plan to stitch them on fabric. Now the perforated paper that comes with it is a 14 count. In comparison, it comes as a 14 count, and obviously there's a lot of beads. You can obviously, when a project calls for beads, you can substitute that for fabric. If you go too lower down, however, or too higher up in the fabric count, it can change the placement of the beads. So I literally swapped it like for like. So if it was 14 count perforated paper, I'm actually stitching it on 28 count even weave fabric. The fabric I have chosen to stitch the 3 Magi's on is a sparklies fabric. I've had it in my stash for quite a while. It's an even weave, and sorry, there's thread there as well, and it's actually called Moonlighting, and it's a lovely shade of blues to darker blues and things. So I had this on a fat quarter, so I cut it into 4 pieces, and I knew that would give me enough room for finishing as well, depending on how I decided to finish it. So this one's had about 2 days work on it. It was actually 2 full days, it's the way it fell, so that's why there's a lot more stitching. And although it may not be coming across in the camera, there's a lot of beads on here and it gives it a lot of definition. I particularly like the way they've done the beards as well. I think that's really sweet. So this one's Balthasar, and I really like him. Now in the pattern this is stitched separate and attached separately, but what I'll do is that I'll stitch him completely and then I'll just omit in the pattern that space there and just stitch as if he's holding it in that position rather than place it on. So I'm not sure how I'm going to finish these, but I know that I wanted to have the 3 because I think at Christmas they'll be lovely additions. So this is where I am with Balthasar currently. The next one is obviously the next one in the trilogy, or it doesn't matter what order you do them in, but is Gasper. Now Gasper was actually the first Mill Hill kit I actually started, and I started this at the retreat in Milton Keynes in April, because there is a stitch along that you can do as such, not a stitch along, but a new start to celebrate the retreat. So I decided to do a smaller project because I knew by that point at the end of April that Mania and may not plan out the way I expected. So I thought start something small that I can remember this by. So this is Gasper, and this is how far I've got with him. Again, you've got the beads that for the beard and this beautiful detail. I really do like the way the beading, you can see it quite here, it's quite heavily beaded as well. They are really pretty pieces. And I work with these on a Q-snap. I've got an 8x8 Q-snap, and this fits perfectly, and I bead as I'm going along because I know I haven't got to move the Q-snap. It fits in there lovely, so when I put it in, that's all the space I need. So that's Gasper. And then the last one is Melchior, I believe that's how you pronounce it. And again, this is the last one in the Magi Trilogy. And again, I chose to stitch that on the Moonlighting, which is again an even weave, hand dyed by Sparklies. So that's Melchior. And that's how far I've got with the stitching with him. Again, you've got the lovely beads. So I'm really pleased with those. It would be nice to have them finished for Christmas, but as I've said before, I'm not putting any pressure on myself this year. I've got a lot going on with the house and things and family stuff, so I've decided to I wanted to participate and have options, but to go with the flow at the same time. I can I can restart again with my normal routine next year. So the next one was a sneaky new start for me when I actually purchased from Peatside Needle Crafts the Dorothy's Discovery, which you'll see in the other video. I actually also purchased my first Prairie schooner, so I should make this a first, shouldn't I? And this is the first Prairie schooner pattern I've actually worked on. It's called Old World Santas 2. And I particularly like these. I like these because they're not all in red. Some of them are in blue and green. I like that. I like this particular style, and I love the way they've finished them in the pots with like the Christmas tree sprigs. So to be honest, I think I'll be finishing them very similar, unless another idea inspires me. But I actually quite like that, and I think that would look nice out at Christmas on the table. So I started 2 of these for Mania. The ones I started was, let me have a look. Let me check. Yes, this one here and this one. So I started 2. And that's book 88, should you want it. And I actually got one finished. So this was the first one I started and finished, and he's lovely. I really like him. And this is the second one. So you can see I've still got some work to do on him. Now this fabric is absolutely beautiful. Again, it's a 32 count Belfast linen, and it is a hand dye by Sparklies. It was one of my fabric of the months, and this is called Parchment. And I don't know whether you can see it on the camera because I can't really bend forward without blocking the light, but to describe it, it's almost like a sandstone colour with green and grey mottling going through it. It's really, really lovely, and this is called Parchment. And to get a similar colour dye, you would need it to be a 32 count Belfast. Obviously, I'm sure you're aware, a lot of the fabrics dye different depending on their makeup, whether they're cotton, flax, or have some different sort of fibres woven in. They can take the dye differently, but for a very similar dye, and being a hand dye, that's what's nice about them. Each piece is unique, a bit like a crystal. Each one's formed uniquely. So, but this is a particularly lovely piece of fabric, and I would definitely be requesting this sort of fabric again, because it's just so versatile. It's ideal for this sort of primitive rustic style. It'd probably be lovely for samplers as well. So there's my 2 Prairie School Santas, Prairie Schooler. And then my last 2 pieces was something that a project that I've been working on, and I started last year. For those of you that have been watching me for a while, I actually started the sampler Easter eggs by the Sampler House. This was actually I intend to do all 8 of these pieces, and I'm not 100% sure how I'm going to finish them yet, but I thought that that would be a nice display for spring and for Easter. I actually finished this one last year, so that was one of my starts and finishes for Mania last year, but I decided to do, it would take me 8 years if I only done one, so I decided to do 2 and speed it up a little bit. So excuse me. So the piece, the 2 that I chose this year was this sampler egg and this sampler egg. So this is my first. This is actually a finish. It has got some speciality stitches in it, but the instructions are very easy to follow, and they are like embroidery stitches that are quite common. So don't be put off by using those. The fabric is slightly spring. I don't know whether you can see on the, it's very, very like sort of a minty light colour, and it's very nice and ideal for the pastel-y colours that I tend to like to decorate with for spring. So that's my first one, and this is my second finish of the sampler eggs. Is that the right way up? Let me just check. Nope. There you go. So that's my second finish for the sampler eggs. That one's a particularly pretty one. So again, I'm not sure how I'm going to finish them, but I would like to complete them first before I 100% decide, so that they can all be finished and displayed in a very similar way to each other. So that's why they've not been finished yet. So this is there's now 3 completed. So that was the one I completed last year. So that's my Stitch Mania. So technically, you know, although I started quite a few, I've finished 3 already. But with the way things are going for me this year, I think that that's a happy stance. If I can get the others finished before next year, then I'll be pleased with that, and then I can incorporate them into my Mania plans. I did set out to have quite a few Mania plans, but actually I've decided things happened, so I didn't end up sticking to it. So I'll probably go back and do those, start again in May next year. From my last video, I didn't get to show you with my fabric of the month. I think I'll start sharing my sparklies fabric of the month. I tend to get the same at the moment, the same count. So I get 32 count Belfast. And I've got quite a few of her fabrics now, although as you can tell from my videos I do use them quite a bit. But this month's fabric, or May's fabric, was called Champagne, and it's a beautiful fabric. It's an opalescent, so it does actually sparkle. I don't know if you can tell, it sparkles a little bit. And to give you an idea of the colour, because it is champagne colour, I can't find anything. You can see from there the sort of, that it's not white, it's like a lovely very pale lemony sand colour, and with the sparkle. I'm not sure what I'm going to put on that yet. I think that's quite versatile. It could be used celebratory, anniversaries, birthdays. I think it would also be really nice as a neutral Christmas piece as well. But again, that has to, you have to decide that to fit your aesthetics. But I do love Sparklies fabric. I can't rate her highly enough. I really like her dyeing techniques and things. So yeah, I'd recommend that you go and check Kate out at Sparklies. She has a Facebook page, and she also has a website, so you can find her on there. So I definitely recommend using that, and you can see this is how it normally comes. So she gives you the name, marks off the count that it is, and it's a fabric of the month. So that was Champagne, so that was May's fabric of the month. I've put little fluff balls on it. That was May's fabric of the month for this month. So I know this is only a quick video, guys, but I just thought I could check in and just let you know how things are going, and what I did for Mania, so that I don't fall too far behind. I did get some questions about this actually. This is actually a mouse mat. It's quite grubby. This is actually a mouse mat that I had in from my old house, and I just thought it was quite sweet. I purchased it from eBay. You may be able to get them on Amazon. I haven't checked. It was only just looking at it just a second ago that made me remember how many people asked me about it. But it's a great way, especially when I can't see the camera, it's a great way of knowing how to set the camera up and see what you can see in regards to what I'm showing you. So thanks very much for watching. Thank you again to all my subscribers and to any new subscribers, and hopefully I'll see you again soon. Bye bye.